Hello everyone. On behalf of T-Consult, I would like to welcome
大家好，我仅代表 T-Consult 欢迎大家参加这次的网络研讨会。我是 Kirsty， 是今天线上讲座的主持人。稍后我们将欢迎我们的主讲人 Ross McGill。Ross 将讨论2023年1月1日生效的 QI 协议的变更。我们的成员 Amanda 许也将加入我们。他今天将为我们进行翻译，您可以选择用英语或是中文收听线上讲座。如果你有任何问题，请随时在 Zoom 荧幕底下的问答按钮中输入您的问题。Ross 将在研讨会的适当时间回答您的问题。如果你有任何技术支援，请使用聊天 chat 功能让我们知道。你将在线上讲座期间观看聊天资讯，并在可能的情况下直接回复您，协助帮助。您可能注意到我们在今天的线上讲座有即时字幕，那这些字幕是自动生成的，所以我们无法承担任何错误的责任。如果您对字幕有不清楚的地方，请在聊天中发讯息给我们，我们很乐意为您说明。如果您想打开或关闭字幕，只需点击缩放萤幕底部底下的字幕按钮。请注意，对于您应参加本次研讨会的采取或不采取任何行动，不负任何责任。谢谢您的聆听。现在我们将时间转给 Ross， 开始进行讲座。午安，我是 T-Consult 董事长 Ross McGill。这场线上讲座的目的是要说明2023年1月1日生效的新 QI 协议。快速介绍一下 T-Consult， 总部位于英国的顾问公司，在美国税务顾问的领域有23年以上的经验。客户遍布了23个国家，包含新加坡、台湾、香港与马他。我们有写了几本我们也有出版一些书籍，可以在亚马逊的书店上找到这本书。所以我们对美国税法有一定的基础之后，今天要主讲的是 1446F 与 QI 的法规。
The changes that are in that agreement will be automatically applied to all 5,000 existing QIs around the world at the same time.
新 QI 协议将在2023年1月1日生效，任何变更将自动适用于现有添加 QI， 必须因应这些变更。那最大的变更是加入1446F 法规。那拟定的变
in a notice issued earlier this year by the IRS. That was notice 2022-23.
那拟定的变更公告于 IRS 的网站上面，那您可以在 IRS 的网站上面找到 Notice 2022-23这份公告。那最终版的 QI 协议将被公布于 IRS 的网站 QI 网站上面，所以必须要注意什么时候公布，并且了解哪些这些变更会带来的影响。
Under the normal Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 rules. What's new is that from January the 1st,
现行 QI 协议已经提供了1446A 有关 PTP 配息所得预扣的规定，就是第3章、第4章预扣税与申报所业。
You apply the 10% withholding unless there is an exception to apply, or if the PTP has issued a qualified notice.
新的规定是从2023年1月1日起，从 PTP 转让所实现的金额必须预扣10%。这跟股利的所得无关，这是跟交易成本有关。那当受让人，也就是买方，不是美国人时，必须对转让 PTP 持股以实现金额征收10%的预扣税，除非有例外情况或是已经发布的合格通知。
They will also be changing
税款将由转让人或者是他们的券商来做支付。
These are the two most common things that allow a qualified intermediary to be terminated from the program.
那新的 QI 更新法规有 PTP 金额的文件记录、预扣申报，然后还有超额预扣的做法，以及违约事件与重大缺失的定义。
A transferee is the person who is buying the PTP interest.
主要的名词解释如下：转让人。当我们提到 transferor 转让人，是指卖出 PTP 权益的人。transferee 受让人是指买进 PTP 受益的人。
that a seller receives from the sale of an asset. So this is not about the difference between how much I bought the asset for and how much I sold the asset for. It's the amount from the sale of the asset. The other term that I used was qualified notice. This is a notice that's published by a PTP.
Proceed 总收益是指卖方从出售资产中获得的金额。至于我以多少钱买进和多少钱卖出之间无关，而是我以多卖出的这个金额有关。那合格通知由 PTP 发出的通知，说明自 PTP 任何配息的税务处理，以及是否有任何券商或是保银适用的例外及修正的情形。那今日议题涵盖什么是 PTP？
A publicly traded partnership is a type of limited partnership that's managed by two or more general partners.
PTP 公开交易合伙事业是一种由2个或多个普通合伙人管理的有限合伙事业，包含个人、公司或其他合伙事业。
They have no management role in the partnership itself. The partnership PTP
的资本是由有限合伙人出资，但在合伙事业中具有管理公司的角色。
In its own right, anyway, by buying and selling securities. It's interesting to note
的权益可以在初级市场以及次级市场上交易。
At the end of the security's name. That's not always true, but it is a good sign.
那一个很好辨别 PTP 的方法是在证券的名称上面通常会有 P 这样的字样。下一个问题是，你们会如何影响到券商 QI？
The most common two ways to do this are to ask
第二个问题是要如何去辨别 PTP 的商品
that are available to your clients. The second is to visit the depository trust company's website. The DTC is the United States Central Securities Depository. PTPs are required to send qualified notices to DTC.
第二个方法是到 DTC 的网站上面观看。DTC 是美国证券及保管结算公司，提供存管信托以及结算服务。那 PTP 需要向 DTC 发送的通知。
You can always analyze the prospectus of the security of a PTP to see if it can receive income that's effectively connected to a US trade or business. This is important because the amount of tax and the rate of that tax can be affected by the amount of PTP 的公开说明书，看它是否提供获得与美国交易或是商业有关的有关连结的收入，这是一个重要因素，因为 PTP 产生的所得比例是决定是否适用例外或是修正预扣税额。 Now, if you remember, the capacity in which you operate with your counterparties is communicated using a US form called a W8IMY and a withholding statement. The IRS
使用 W8IMY 和预扣声明书告知你的上属，
您的营运模式的身份，所以您跟每一个上手的营运身份上面会写在 W8IMY 表上，那预扣税额以及支付款则是写在预扣声明上。那 IRS 在2021年的10月有修正了新的 W8IMY 表单，那这个表单里头已经包含1446F 的选项。然后您可以对1446F 和第3章以及第4章采取不同的选项。那新的选项的话，新的选项则是揭露式的 QI。那大部分的 QI 在接收所得的时候，并不会揭露他们的客户上手，而是采用集合预扣以及集合申报。那根据1446F， 你可以选择揭露或不揭露。如果你选择揭露PTP 转让人给的客户名单给你的上手，这样你的上手就可以知道要预扣多少的税款。那如果你打算成为揭露式 QI 的话，你必须要提供一份预扣声明书给上手，列出每一个接收者，也就是 PTP 转让人和适用的税。所以现在有3种营运模式，第一种是预扣式 QI， 第二种是揭露式 QI， 类似像 NQI 的作业模式，还有非揭露式 QI。
It does not affect whatever decision you've made about the capacity that you act in for Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. That would normally be typically for dividends and portfolio interest.
如果你已经是预扣式的 QI， 也许你已经知道要进行，你可以根据 1446F
Form W8IMY and provide an updated withholding statement
选择承担主要的预扣责任。那这不影响，这完全不影响你在第3章以及第4章预扣的决定。那在2021年10月的版本的 W8IMY 表上填写第 15B 行，并提供最新的预扣声明书给你的上手。
Will be at payee level. In other words, you'll identify each transferor that received a payment with respect to a PTP.
如同先前所说的，新的方案是揭露式 QI， 所以这个方案必须提供 W8IMY 以及受款人层级的预扣声明书和客户的 W8 或是 W9 表单给上手。这个跟 NQI 揭露客户资讯给上手的做法类似。如果你想要成为揭露式的 QI， 基本上您不负责做预扣，因为由上手进行预扣税款，而你提供预扣声明书及 PTP 转让人的资讯，转让人的 W8、W9 表单给上手即可。那揭露式的 QI 不需对 PTP 所得进行14S 申报，因为上手，因为你已经将客户的资料揭露给上手。第3个方案是非揭露式 QI。But
what that means is that you now must calculate how to withhold based on the client documentation that you have.
大部分的 QI 不会揭露资讯给上手，而是向上手提供集合式的预扣声明。这边有个重要的事项要说明是，你必须告诉上手如何做预扣，因此你必须根据客户的文件计算如何预扣，还有合格通知是否有例外情况。然后非揭露式的 QI 有义务在1014S 表上申报 PTP 的所得。
And there are some important changes here. You need to have a valid W8 or W9. If your client trades PTPs and could be a
对于每个
transfer
交易
or,
PTP 账户持有人，这里有一个很重要的变更，
then they will need to have a
就
valid
是你会
US
需
tax
要一个
identification
从客
number
户那边
on the
一个有
W8.
效的 W8 或
It's not
W9
enough
表。
for that valid US TIN to be sitting in your KYC records. It has to be on the form.
如
If
果
your
客户
client
持有
happens to be
PTP
another financial institution,
W8 表
you'll
上
need a
必须要有客户
W8IMY
有效
using
的
the
美国
October
税编，
2021 revision so that you can determine what they're doing and how they are acting
但是大
down
部
the chain of
分
payment
在
from
美
you.
国投资人并没有美国税编，如果他们想要申请免预扣税10%的例外，则必须提供有美国税编。那使用2021年10月修订版本的 W8IMY 表来进行。如果你有客户是金融机构的话，
So just so that we're all clear, with respect to publicly traded partnership distributions, such as dividends, the tax rate is 37% if the recipient is an individual and 21% if the recipient is an entity.
PTP
For a
配息的税率，
gross
个人
proceeds,
是 37%，
the
实
tax
业
is
是
10%,
20%。
as I said earlier. But you will need to check for exceptions
那如
and
同
any
我先前
qualified
说到的
notices that might
，PTP 的
change
收
the
益课
proportion
税是
of the
10%。
payment that is taxable.
那另外你还必须检查可能发生的例外情形，以及合格通
Now,
知
you'll be
者有没有
pleased to
告
hear that I'm not going to go
提
through the
供多
diagram
少
on the right-hand
总收
side
益
of
的
this
比
slide
例会
in
被课税。
detail, but we will be posting a recording of this webinar to YouTube after the webinar ends. So you'll be able to download the slides and look at the slide in detail. The first thing to do
线上讲座结束以后呢，也会将影片放上 YouTube，
is to
所以
establish if there was an amount
如果在这场
realized.
讲座上关于有些资讯比较不清楚，或是图表比较不清楚的话，
Then
可以到
how much
YouTube
was
上
the
面
sale
反复
price?
观看以及下载我
The
们的
second thing to do is to
投影
check
片的
whether any
讲座的
exception
影片。
applies. So first, check if there was a qualified notice that states that an exception or a modification to the tax rate or the proportion of the payment that should be taxed at 10% applies. The second is to check if there is any backup withholding that needs to apply.
首先要确认一下
I spoke earlier
PTP 转让
about
是否有
the
已实现的
10%
金额，
tax rate
再
applies
来
to
是检查
non-US
是否有
persons.
例外的情况。
If the
第一个
transferor
是
is
检
a
查
US account
合格通
holder,
知书是否
you
说明
should have
适
a
用的例外情
W9
况或
on
修正。
file for that account holder. But if you don't have a US tax ID number, or that tax ID number does not match the IRS database, or if the US person has told you on their W9 that they're subject to backup withholding, then the exception does not apply, and you would have to tax at 24%.
第二个是检查是否适用 backup
And
或
finally,
backup
you should check to see
backup
on the
withholding 的预
W8
扣。
whether your
如果账
client
户
has
持有人
made
是
a
美国人
special
的
rate
话，则是
claim
提供 W9 的
to
表单
reduce。the rate of
如果
tax.
有预扣税
There are，
如果
some
有
tax treaties
backup 预
which
扣的
will
话，税
allow
率
a
是
special rate to be claimed,
如果没
and
有
that
预扣
will
税的
need
话，
to
则
be
是
put
10%。
onto the
另外，
W8.
如果是非美国人的话，则必须在 W8 表上提供美国税编。那检查客户是否在 W8 表中提出有其他特殊税率的申请。如果有提出税属协定申请的话，可以给他们 PTP 免预扣10%的例外情形。如果没有申请任何例外的话，则就是回归到最初的法规规定，总收益必须预扣10%。
One important thing to note here, you cannot apply an exception to withholding on income received by a client of an NQI.
还有
So
一
if
件
you
重要
have
的事情
customers
是
who
必
are
须知道
also
的。
financial
如果你
institutions,
有
you should
NQI
also have a
金融机构的客户
W8IMY
的话，
from them.
即使
If on that W8IMY, they are telling you that they are going to disclose their clients to you, even for the purpose of 1446F, you cannot apply any exceptions. So when you receive their W8 and their withholding statement, you can't apply any exceptions to the 10% withholding for any client of a non-qualified intermediary, even if that client has been disclosed to you.
也就是说，即使客户已经被揭露，你还是不能对 NQI 客户收到的所得来做1446的预扣税例外处理。
So we've talked about documentation, we've talked about withholding, and now we come to reporting.
我们讨论完了客户的文件，接下来客户文件以及预扣税，接下来说明申报作业。
You should obviously use the form 1042S, and you should report PTP
的所得申报只适用于预扣税，还有非揭露式的 QI。
as income code 27. PTP gross proceeds under 1446F have to be reported separately, and they would be reported using income code 57.
WIMY 和预扣声明揭露客户资讯的时候，申报义务就会移转到上手。 所以只有预扣式的 QI 跟非揭露式的 QI， 在这种情况下，要对1446A PTP 的配给104S 的申报。根据10446A 规定 ，PTP 配息的所得代码是27，那 PTP 收益的所得代码是57。另外就是委托人信托和合伙事业必须要做单独的申报。
Other points that you should note. Some financial institutions are taking the approach
还有其他事项是你也必须明白
across the board and refund clients later if it's found that they over-withheld because there was an exception, for example.
所以您不能对 PTP 交易使用集合退款的方法。也就是说，如果你决定
and that's the most popular method, you cannot use the collective refund method for PTP transactions. The definitions of some events of default and material failures have been updated for reference to PTP income.
等到年底的时候，再来做一次10%
will be audited
PTP 收益10%的预扣税退款，这是不被允许。
have met the terms of the QI agreement. The IRS has included changes to the definition of event of default and material failure, which now include PTP failures.
那跟 PTP 有关的一些违约事件和重大缺失的定义分析。那这边重要的是，你必须确保 QI 协议发布的时候所说的内容已经有概括到您的合规计划。
mean that if you have a TIN, a US TIN on a W8, you must have a reason from your client. Clearly, a valid reason is because we trade PTPs, but you will need to change your validation processes to make sure they take account of that.
那如果你的客户不是美国人的话，然后当他持有 PTP， 他们的 W8 表上必须要有美国的税编。
And the information about it have been available for some time now. We have been asked on many occasions by clients and prospective clients what our views are about 1446F. We ran a poll earlier this month to ask financial institutions what they plan to do about 1446F.
在这个月初，我们举办了一个投票的公文，询问这些金融机构，他们打算如何因应1446。
Of course, if you do that, it means there cannot be any realized amount, and therefore the issue of 10% withholding goes away. 20% of the people we asked said they were going to adopt withholding QI status.
超过一
Now, in
半
most
的
cases, they are already withholding
回答者
QIs, so they already
选
receive
择
all
禁止
income
PTP 交
gross.
易，这也就代表
They
说他们可以
decide how
规
much
避
tax is going to be withheld, and
转
they
让
pay the
PTP
US
转让的
Treasury.
时候会产生10%的预扣
10%
税
of the people we asked are going to adopt disclosing QI status.
，20%
And that's the
的
new status. So
应
we
答
don't
者
know how
选
that's going
择
to
采
work
用
out.
预扣式
It
QI 的
should
身份。
mean a change to the way in which withholding statements are structured. 15%, quite an important amount,
那
just
10%
don't
选
have
择
any
非
strategy
结
at
构
all
式
for
QI。
how they're going to deal with PTP
抱歉
interests.
，10% 的应答者选择
So I
成
think
为
that's
结
quite an
构式
interesting
QI。
response from the industry.
那将
And certainly
结构式
those who are
QI
intending to
将
prohibit trading in PTPs
W8
will need to make
W8MY 以
sure
及
that any clients that
预扣
currently
式营
trade
收
or
还有客户
hold
的
PTPs
W8 W9 交
sell
给
those
上手，由上口
PTPs
来做预
before
扣。
January the 1st, so that their client base of the financial institution is completely clear of any PTP interests.
15% 的客户是没有任何策
In
略的。
summary, decide if you want to continue offering PTP products because 1446F regulations come into force on January the 1st. Some institutions are planning to withdraw from the PT market to avoid those rules. However, if you do
总结
intend to allow trading in
决定你是
PTPs,
否继续提供
the
PTP
second
的
thing you
商
must
品，
do is
因为
choose your operating model. To do that, you
因为一些
must
金融机
consult
构正在
your
计划要
upstream
推出
counterparties
PTP
and
市
find
场，
out
以
which
避
operating model they
以
support.
避以用来
As
规
many
避
of you
意
will
思
have
的
found
F 的
before,
法规。
you
如果
may
你倾
choose
向
to
于学
want to act
PTP 的
in
交
one
易的话，
particular way,
你还必
but when you
须
try
选
and
择
tell your
您的营
counterparty
运模
they've
式。
taken a commercial decision that they may or may not support the way in which you want to work.
首先
So
向你
it's
的上手
absolutely
咨询，
vital
了
you
解
talk
说
to your
上手
upstream
资源哪种
counterparty
营运模
and
式，
ask
因为他们
them
有可能有商
what
业上
kinds
的考
of
量，没
operating
有办法
model
全
will you
权支援
support for
所想要的
1446F.
营运模式。
Finally, if you're a qualified intermediary, you must make sure that once you've made your decision, that you update your compliance program, policies and procedures, update your systems so that they can track PTPs and the amounts realized so that you can properly withhold the 10%. And then you must make sure that you train staff to reflect your decisions on those procedures. Remember, a compliance
最后要
program is a
最后是更
contractual
新您的
obligation
作
of
业
a
程
qualified
序，确
intermediary.
保
You must
确
have
保
one,
更新您
and it's the
的
responsible officer's duty
确保
to
您已经
keep
更
it
新
up
您
to
的合
date.
规政策和程序系统以及员工训练。那
So for those of you who are interested, we did write a briefing paper on 1446F and the new QI agreement earlier this year. You can also go to the internet and get Notice 2022-23,
我们针对
which will give you
1446F 以
much
及
more information.
新的
And of
QI
course,
协议
you
这样
can
的
wait for the
这样
new
的主
QI
题
agreement to
的
come
撰
out
写
as
一
a
份
revenue
报告。
procedure,
那
probably
在
in January.
上半年的时候
Sometimes the
，IRS
IRS will
公
issue
布
it
了
slightly
Notice
before January the 1st,
2022-23这样
but
子
we
的
don't
公告
know
在
when
网
that
站上，
document is
也
going to
可以
come
直
out.
接也可以直接阅读这个 Notice 去了解更多的细节。那另外的话就是近期要上 IRS QI 的网站上面去看说，就是新的 QI 协议是否已经公告出来。
So that concludes the webinar for today. Thank you very much for your attention. If you'd like to get in touch to get more information, then you can email us, you can telephone us, or you can visit our website, or you can contact Amanda locally in Taiwan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ross. We do have some questions if you'd like to take those now.
谢谢 Ross， 我们收到一些问题，你要现在回答吗？没问题。第一个问题是，请说明非美国人如何取得美国税编。 那有哪些步骤？好，要取得美国税籍编号，自然人必须要填写 W7 表单。那如果客户是实业，则要填写 SS4 表单与 EIN 的号码。这些表单可以从 IRS 网站下载。那填写完成后寄出，通常是收到 IRS 的邮件通知。那若您有填写电子信箱的话，也会收到电子信箱的通知。谢谢。我们还有一个稍微长的问题，所以希望我可以转达清楚。那这个问题是有一个 FI 客户是买方，透过台湾券商买进 PTP 的股票，然后下单转给美国券商。那在结算的过程中，美国券商与台湾券商的代理人进行结算，反过来台湾券商也进行结算。那台湾券商的代理人是 Citi， 那 Citi 的说法是，当券商与 PTP 买方结算时，台湾券商成为转让人，必须要负责预扣 10% 的销售收益。那请问 Citi 的意见是不是不太合理呢？这个问题我们可能需要了解一些细节。那提问人愿意的话，可以与 Amanda 联络，或是发 email 给我们，我们很乐意直接回复。好，那最后一个问题是在 DVP 的结构下，我们要如何因应 1446F 法规的做法呢？这是一个比较容易回答的问题，因为在 DVP 的结构下，金融机构不在这个支付链里头。我们之前有跟台湾的券商讨论过，确认如果不在这个支付链里头的话，就不适用 1446F 的法规。那实际上就是谁负责接收所得并经手，谁就要负责预扣税款。那就我们目前所知的 DVP 在 1446F 法规之外。
is outside the scope of 1446F as far as we know.
Excellent, thank you very much.
好，非常谢谢您。以上是这次提出的所有问题。再次感谢大家的参与。那我仅代表 T Consult 感谢 Ross 的演讲以及 Amanda 协助翻译。如果您对本讲座中提到的任何问题有任何内容有任何问题，请发电子邮件给我们。那会后我们会寄出线上讲座的录影、投影片以及我们对 QI 协议所撰写的报告。我们希望这次线上讲座能对您有所帮助。如果我们能在 QI 合规方面提供协助的话，我们很期待听到您的回复。非常感谢您今天的参与。